Welcome home. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We are positively into the summer months. All-Star Game Week. The first place Baltimore Orioles. God, I love saying that. I waited my whole life to say that. We'll be hosting the Yankees, and then we'll have a break, and Luke is eating Max Pizza in Wildwood, New Jersey. I hope he runs into Flacco down there with the family. The Maryland Lottery puts on our Maryland Crab Cake Tour. The Gold Rush Sevens doublers will be gifted away at Fadley's this Friday, but then again into the future. And we're doing the Oyster Tour in September. I'm so excited about all the stuff that we're doing around here, including going to Mako in August. But, this baseball thing is awesome in lots and lots of ways. It has sort of rejuvenated relationships. The documentary was released a couple months ago, and people come in and out of my life, and they don't allow me, they discriminate against me and don't allow me to have a press credential. I don't go in and out of Chicago and eat pizza with friends, and then I lose friends along life's journey. And then the Cubs come to town. And when the Cubs come to town, I harken back to my days in Northbrook, Illinois, one-on-one sports, where Mark Jenskow and Matt Nahagian brought the nasty Nestor on and took away all my sound effects and all sorts of things as I got there. But we went from one-on-one sports to sporting news flash. And I met such cool people. It's such a gift to me all these years later. We have this page on Facebook where we all get together, maybe 40, 50 of us nerded up. And I often say, and I said this last week to some friends that came to my home and real friends on the 4th of July. I said, I don't just want to get together on funerals. I like you guys too much for that. I care about you guys too much. And we did have we lost a producer, a friend of ours at Sporting News Radio, a guy I was very close with, Lonnie Willems, in recent weeks. So when I saw that the Chicago Cubs were coming to town, and I couldn't call Chet Kopic any longer, who used to be one of my foils. Anytime we played the Cubs every fourth year, the White Sox twice a year. And I called Jim Lickey, and I can't even do his accent. I can't do the Lickey thing is a whole different level of Saturday Night Live thing. But he declined to come on because he says he's retired. And I said, but you have all of this wisdom. You can't just take that and park it. You have to share that wisdom, Jim Lickey. So I'm calling you out. I'm calling out all of our one-on-one sports friends. Randy Merkin was never my producer, but he did produce some of my shows. He was always with Bruce and Papa Joe, but a real Chicago guy who went on to produce things. He wrote a beautiful book a couple of years ago about chasing down the stars to make the stars like me and Jay Mariotti look good. Randy Merkin, I reached to you, and you're the one that said yes. I'm still waiting to hear back from some of the Chicago goons out there, the deep dish eaters. But I love you, man. How are you? The last time I saw you, there was a plague, and you were at ESPN, and I have this beautiful picture of you and me out on the street with a reflection of the Chicago theater on the glass. And you wrote a book, and I feel like I don't have you on enough because you're one of those fountains of Midwestern wisdom of all things Chicago history and sports. And it is so good to see you. And how is your cookie crumbling?
Nestor, the cookies are crumbling great. I appreciate you mentioning that. Boy, Jim Litkey's retired. God, that's unbelievable. Jim is one of my favorite people in this industry.
Everybody's,
he's got pinned with, he was with Mariotti, and when hosting a show with Jay Mariotti is always kind of tough because you never know what kind of mood Jay's going to be in each day. And Jim just rolled with the punches, man. I love that guy. And his son was one of our interns. Great family. But before we get started, it's a crazy story. So I play golf a lot. Okay, I just love it. It's my one vice, Nestor, is I love golf. And I usually go out as a single because none of my friends really play, and I just like going out. I don't like waiting for people. So I'm playing golf, and it's right after the U.S. Open where Rory blows it. And I'm talking to the guy I'm playing with, and I'm like, I actually covered the 98 U.S. Open when Payne Store beat Phil Mickelson, and everyone was going nuts because we didn't want to stay the extra day. Back then, the U.S. Open was an 18-hole playoff. And I'm like, he goes, oh, yeah, he goes, if you don't mind me asking, who'd you cover for? I said, I worked for this national network actually out of Northbrook called One-on-One Sports. And he looks at me with a smile. He goes, "Did you know Lonnie Willems?" And I
Ooh.
said, "I did. I loved Lonnie." And he goes, he was one of my closest friends. And I'm like, "Tragic." And he was like,
What
"Absolutely."
hole did you figure this out on?
Second hole.
All right,
Second
so
hole.
early in the
Yeah.
day. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. And we talked. I probably the conversation on Lonnie went 2 holes. I found about a bunch of information I didn't know about him.
Yeah, I probably would have lost my ish on the third hole if I'd have found that out, and I'm
Yeah.
not a golfer,
Yeah.
like
We and
so.
I told him backstory of Lonnie and just what kind of guy he was at the network. And anyways, it was just crazy.
Lonnie was a dog, man. He was like Phil Garner. He was like scrap iron. He
Yeah.
was like getting stuff done. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Lonnie could lay down the bunt, hit the sac fly, or hit the 3-run home run for you.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, that's who
And
Lonnie was.
and Nestor, it made me think because back in the day we used to do every winter during Christmas break, we got the crew together. I would just put an invite out. We'd go to
It
one of
was
the
that Italian place up on that Papa Joe liked, right? Up,
well,
up in
we
Northbrook.
went to a bunch of different places and we'd just get whoever wanted to come. I think the most we had was like 30 people showed up one time.
Well, let's
And
do it again. This we got
oh,
to. I'm calling the
here's my idea. It's too late this summer to do it now. But
calling the social.
maybe next summer
Hmm.
we get we have a big to do, all right? Where
Hmm.
we get a hotel, do it like maybe a dinner and then a breakfast the next morning or something
We
like
got to
that.
go to Pequod's and get pizza because that was Lonnie's place.
Okay.
And Lonnie sent me there. And no offense to Pizza John's,
Yeah.
Squires, anywhere here in my favorite pizza on earth is Pequod's
It's
Pizza in
it's up there.
Chicago, and it's
Yeah.
because he sent me there
Right.
long after we worked together. This is when he was a cop on Facebook. I was
Yeah.
going in for like a Pearl Jam concert or
Uh,
something, and he's like sent me there. So sausage, we got to do it the right
yeah.
way. Beer, the
Yeah.
whole deal, right?
But I want the whole crew to get together. Like, people far, Bobby Kemp's in Arizona
Listen,
still.
I'll drive through Cleveland and pick Bernard's ass up and
That's
bring
right.
him with me.
Paul
All right?
Fredericy still lives out here. Calderon lives out here. We're getting the Hagian in town. The Williams are out here. We could do it. We could do
I'm
it.
in. I'm in. We'll sing
Okay.
karaoke. It'll be good.
Yeah.
So Randy Merkin worked with me, and I just want to say this about Lonnie without getting weepy because I
Uh,
tend to do that in these cases. Um, Lonnie produced, but when I had all of these big stars on, and like anybody listening, I did a documentary in the winter. Please go watch it. My big thanks to Curio. I am a blunt person, but spent a little time with how I wound up at One-on-One Sports and the station and Nasty Nestor and Free the Bird, just all the crap that's gone on in my life over 55 years. But I went back and, looked at that period of my life and those couple of years and the newsletters that sort of linked me to getting the job in Chicago and all the places we went and the people we met and pictures and all of that stuff. Lonnie was the one. And I love Bernard and Cliff and Justin, all those guys. But Lonnie would always say, I'm putting that on tape for you. I'm grabbing that one for you. I'm grabbing that one for you. And he would send me these mini discs full of interviews of me with Vin Scully and Bob Euchre and Jesse Jackson and George Brad and like on, I mean, hundreds of Hall of Famers of all sports, stuff that when the plague happened and I was looking to really build out Baltimore Positive and the repository of all the people I've talked to in 40 years of doing this, I found Hall of Famers and interviews that I've forgotten. And the two that got away, John Wooden and I
mm,
shared the same birthday, October 14th, and he was my idol hero, still is. I mean, when I had Bill Walton on, we talked about John Wooden. When like anybody that was connected to John Wooden, we talked about John Wooden. And I had John Wooden was on the show one day on our birthday, our mutual birthday. We called him, wished him happy birthday. He did 20 minutes with me, and we never had the tape, so it's missing.
oh,
And then I had Sammy Hagar on, and it was missing. And I would always like ask him if you ever find it, if you ever, and Lonnie, for the million interviews he gave me that I have this repository, he felt so awful about the John Wooden one evaporating somewhere. And you could speak to how things evaporated, Randy. Like it was quite an office.
yeah, it was. And things did disappear, but that place, Nestor, like, and both of us have worked a long time in this industry. It was, I mean, and I loved my time at ESPN, but nothing like Sporting News One-on-One Sports. I mean, we were always fighting the good fight, right? Early on, no one knew who the heck we were. And like it was always like puffing out our chest to try to let people know who we were. And the product we produced, the people we worked with was second to none. I mean, it was just fantastic. Like,
Dogs, every one of you.
yeah,
I love every one
yeah,
of you. Well, one of you I don't love, but every other one of you, well, you know.
yeah,
Randy Merkin is here, and he was one of the producers. And you're a Chicago guy. I guess the reason I reached you, not just
yeah.
to pay tribute to Lonnie
Uh,
and Papa Joe,
right.
and tell old stories. Just my reach to Chicago at that point in my life. I was looking to be rich and famous and get syndicated and be Stephen A. And by the way, I found tapes of Stephen A. sitting and doing NBA draft stuff with me in 1999 in our studios. But like I look back at it and I think about Chicago and flying in the Midway and flying into O'Hare and coming to that little studio up in Northbrook, past the house where Ferris Bueller and Home Alone and all those parts of that neighborhood. But Michael Jordan and the grandeur of that, and the Cubs trying to win. Harry Carey was still alive then. The White
Wow.
Sox were sort of chasing things down at that point. Like the Blackhawks were in disarray and Wirtz didn't put the games on TV. So I'm going back 25 years. Then you think about these cities and what they go through. I mean, the Orioles were a big deal when I signed at Sport. I mean, like Angelos, 1996, 97, they're winning and all. How much cities change. I mean, and how things change and how like the Cubs come in here as sort of doormatty all over again in some sort of weird way. What is the state of Chicago sports? Because when I think of places that burn for sports, Philadelphia, New York, Chicago was one of those places where it just had a built-in part of in the Bears skit and like all of that. I didn't even mention the Bears, but like really a built-in part of the culture. It's the language of Chicago sports.
Yeah, I mean, Nestor, things are about as bad as and I hate doing hyperbole because, everyone always thinks today is, whatever happened today is the most important thing or the biggest upset, whatever. But I think right now, like, there's no hope for any of these teams. Maybe, the Bears, I think obviously everyone loves the Bears right now because Caleb Williams and they got Keenan Allen, and their offense looks great. But I'll wait and see and believe it when I see it. But the Cubs are just bad right now. And there's the problem with the Cubs is they just don't have any legit stars on the team. And they've got some good guys that can come up, but they're the same team they were last year, and they won 83 games last year. The Sox are obviously a complete disaster. They're the worst team in baseball. They're about to trade their all-star Garrett Crochet. So like people are really down.
Hopefully to us. Hopefully to us.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and the reason why they're going to trade him is they don't think they're going to be. I think he's got 2 years left on his deal, but they don't think they're going to be even competitive and for 2 years. So what's the point of keeping him around?
This
Because
is amazing. Like, because Cisco's last year, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah,
look, man, we're
I
in
didn't mind.
Baltimore. It's funny, man, because you're talking about how bad everything is in Chicago. Dude, I've been on the air here 33 years now. I just had Kenny Albert on 2 weeks ago, and it's kind of how the whole thing was born back in 1991 when Camden Yards was built. And we've never, ever, since my childhood, right, had prosperity that really crossed the streams. 2013 and 14, a little bit with the Flacco era and Buck Showalter, but we got Lamar and we've got last year the best team in the American League right now, first place team, Yankees, All-Star, Gunnar Henderson, like all of that. Like this is as good as it gets in Baltimore, as good as it could possibly get, honestly, with two teams here. And then there's places like you and, other places like, there's this other, Boston always wins. Boston always has one that's good or whatever. It's weird that Chicago's this bad at this point and that it turns the thermometer down for all of it.
Yeah, and it's almost like that some of the owners are forgetting that Chicago is a big city because like the White Sox, the way they're running things is kind of like a smaller market team. The Cubs, I mean, listen, they've spent some money. They spent a lot of money on Dansby Swanson, who's been terrible, and they were never really in the Shohei sweepstakes. So, and then the Blackhawks and the Bulls, the Bulls are just kind of a mess. They're not finally going through another rebuild. They're trading everyone away. So it's kind of depressing. Like there's really no. I mean, the only thing people are holding on to is that Caleb Williams is going to be Patrick Mahomes. That's what people are holding on to right now. Because the one thing I'll say about Caleb Williams that Jay Cutler never did when he was came in and everyone thought he was going to be the savior, is Caleb Williams has embraced being the Bears quarterback. Jay Cutler always, I felt like if he had just embraced it, might have had more success, but at least people would have enjoyed him more. But everyone loves Caleb Williams. He's at a bar after a Cubs game singing the Packers suck, you know. Like he's already won over the fans. Now he's got to do it on the field, obviously, Nestor. And you guys got a great quarterback in Baltimore. I think he's one of one. Patrick Mahomes is the best, right? He might go down as the best of all time. Lamar is he's crazy good. And I still don't know how good he can be, right? I was shocked that the game plan you guys had against the Chiefs last year in that championship game. I felt like the Chiefs kind of baited you guys and it just never came out of it. But I think Lamar Jackson is still gonna be so good. He's already won 2 MVPs. But I still don't know the future of him. But I mean every Chicago sports fan right now, Nestor, has already given up on the Cubs, has already given up on the Sox. No, the Bulls are gonna stink. The Blackhawks got Connor Bedard, so a couple of years maybe they'll be good, but it's all on the Bears. If the Bears are good, this town is run by the Bears, Nestor. So if the Bears are
It's
good,
funny, man. The Bears run Chicago.
they
The
run Chicago.
Lions run Detroit.
Yep.
The Browns run Cleveland. And they're just awful, right? Awful, right? I mean, and the Bills are all Buffalo has, right? And they've been good the
Yeah.
last couple of years or whatever, but like 30 years and no good. I mean, it's like I often think if the Ravens never came here and we just had Angelos and it was just like that, just awful with one sport all the time. And look, man, I'm getting into it with new ownership here, right? I mean, I'm moving into the next generation with Rubenstein and what his intentions are, and I'm talking about it every day. I am brutally mistreated by both of these franchises for sport, quite frankly. There are no questions for ownership ever. And haven't been for a long, long time here. So, and everybody's owned, right? I mean, everybody works for the team in one way or another. And can't speak out. So that's the independence of doing it here. In places like Chicago, I don't know that they still sort of need media. They still sort of need branding, whether it's north side, south side, whether it's trying to get people downtown for an expensive hockey game or an expensive basketball game and getting people moving around a place where traffic's awful, crime's all, like we got all the same issues here. Like people don't go downtown anymore. Well, they do when Pearl Jam comes or when the Stones show up, people that make their way to Soldier Field. And then you guys have on top of it, we just gifted both of these ownership groups $600 million of money and just said, hey, we built them, fixed them. Art did this one, and Lucchino did the other one, and Angelo squatted in it, and with $29 million that he turned into 1.8 billion in a generation. I'm like, it's unbelievable. There's no way to F this up. There's no way to screw it up. It just appreciates at a point. And then you have what you have going on in your town, which is, dude, that football stadium was a joke of a joke of a joke all my life. Whether it was the Redskins playing in the Fog Bowl game with Buddy Ryan in the 80s and the end zones are 100 yards past the end because the place is built in 1912, but it was a memorial, and I get that. But you can't play football. And then they build a rocket ship that landed on top of it with glass. And it was awful the day they built it. I mean, almost everything about it. Dude, something's going to give there. And I don't know that the Bears are moving to San Antonio, but the people of Illinois are going to pay for that.
You think, and right now it's a big debate because Kevin Warren, who's the new president of the Bears, like a year and a half in, he was the commissioner of the Big Ten Network. He's trying to pitch a new stadium in the city, but they have bought land where Arlington Park used to be a racetrack, and
Well, that
that's
was always the threat, right? That it was going to go there,
well,
right?
that's what they're going to end up. They're
I
going
think
to
I
end up.
talked about that when I landed in Norfolk 25 years
Yeah,
ago,
yeah,
literally.
yeah, yeah. So I think it's going to end up in Arlington. Listen, you've been to Soldier Field. It's a disaster getting in and out of. It's like you
I
almost
mean,
have
it's
to.
kind of okay if the weather's okay and you have a hotel downtown. Other
Right.
than that, forget about it. But you get on the L. I mean, I've got in and out. Listen, it's just not it's not, it's awful. I mean, and it's not, and they spent a
Here,
lot of money after we built our place to like knowing it wasn't ever going to be good.
Esther, here's the bottom line. Here's the bottom line for the Bears. They got to start winning,
Yeah.
right? I mean, like it's been bad. Like I love Justin Fields. I thought, like he kind of got a raw deal here, like 3 offense coordinators in 3 years. We never really got the full potential of how good he could have been here, and now what I've heard, who knows what's true, what's not true, that he's not doing great things yet in Pittsburgh. But
Which we appreciate here. I've already
right,
started hazing my Steelers friends, fans, and
right,
saying you
right.
got two quarterbacks, you got none.
Yeah, exactly. But like, I mean, the Bears just have to have a good season this year. They have, with all the hype, they're on Hard Knocks this year. You know what Hard Knocks has done with the Ravens. It can either really help your franchise or it can even make it worse. The Jets were on Hard Knocks last year, and what had in the first 5 plays, Aaron Rodgers done for the year. I'm not saying that's gonna happen with Caleb Williams, but they've got to win 10 games this year. They've got to be 10-7 and hunt for a playoff spot. They really do. They're in a really tough division. The NFC North is loaded this year. Lions are really good. They were in the NFC Championship game. Probably should have beaten the Niners. The Packers, Jordan Love, I think is really good. And the Vikings are the wild card because we don't know who's going to start a quarterback. JJ McCarthy, won a national championship and everyone loves the guy. But like the Bears have to be good this year. And if the Bears are like Nestor, if the Bears go 6-11 this year, I don't know what's going to happen to this city because like all the hopes of this city is on Caleb Williams' right arm, right
All
arm
right.
right now. That's
Well,
what it
look,
comes
dude,
down to.
I used to go down to the south side of Chicago, and I tell everybody, go to Comiskey, get the elotes. Those are the corn that they sell up on the concourse level. Go see the Louis Aparicio statue, and so I used to go by the gift shop there and see this jersey, right? And I always wanted this jersey. It was always like $400 in the gift shop. I found it online. So it's a size too big for me, but
Huh?
it's like a legit, it's like a legit 69
Yeah.
throwback,
Yeah.
Aparicio like piece
Nice.
here. So I'm going to wear this for the remainder here
Okay.
while we pick on the Cubs a little bit.
Yeah. Love that.
The real thing I think about with the Cubs, because I was
Yeah.
there the year they won. I was at those Pearl Jam shows, right? I was
Mhm.
eating Pequod's pizza, like because Lonnie sent me. So I look a little silly. It does look a little big, but that's cool. I'll keep it
Okay.
on anyway. I
Good.
like looking. I look like David Byrne in the Talking Heads video, Once in a Lifetime. Same as it
Yeah.
ever was. So I think of the Cubs as being like trying hard. Like when I went to Chicago and lived and worked in Chicago at the turn of the century with you guys, um, I went to way more White Sox games, even though it was more inconvenient because it was further south,
Yeah.
lots more traffic, just
Yeah.
terrible. But I liked it being kind of quiet and empty. And I live in an American League city. So, like watching National League Baseball, the Cubs was always a pain in the ass. Then it just felt like a party. Then it felt like a beach party. Then I went to some concerts there, and I thought that was kind of fun, seeing bands there and like all that, Jimmy Buffett and whatever. And then they got good, right? Then they like borrowed the Red Sox people and brought in Joe Madden, and I think
Right.
Joe Madden's going to be on the show later on. Dude, it feels like a lifetime ago in the way that maybe Joe Flacco does here, and he was even further back with Joe Flacco. But the Cubs thing kind of came and went. And I guess my other example would be for the Orioles fans to appreciate the now of like how good this current baseball team is here, that it comes and it goes really quickly when I look up and see Rizzo, here and Schwarber there and these guys, because this group that the Orioles have is, and we talk about it every day. Luke and I talk about, how crazy it is that they were this bad, brought in Elias. Angelos did one good thing on the way out the door. He got a baseball genius in here and let him build this thing. But then it gets expensive. And even if you're the Cubs and gambling's coming in and you own the whole neighborhood and you can upcharge everybody on tickets and print money at Wrigley Field and do all of those things, even then, you have to still maybe not operate like a small market team, but the notions here that we're going to have Rutschman and Henderson locked up and this and that and win 5 World Series, that's where the fan base's expectation is. I realize when I see the Cubs or I see the Royals, who had the top of the world for a minute, and the Giants were more like they'd win and lose and win it. Like, give me that. Give me being competitive as compared to what I've seen with the Cubs, which I felt like at some point they'd have enough money that they'd be more like the Dodgers and just sort of be in it all the time, and have more money than the Cardinals would have.
Right. I think their window, Nestor, when they won the World Series, they thought they'd get another one. They really did. They still had the pitching. But all those guys just, I felt like they all came together one year, had that almost like career seasons. And the following year, I think they were out of gas when they got to the Dodgers. The following year, they beat the Nationals and then just ran out of gas again. And then it was basically done. Their window was 3 years and it was over. And listen,
Yeah, 3 years. You said, because
yeah,
we're in the middle of year 2 here.
uh-huh.
So you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
but your guys are really young. Like,
really young.
and you've got guys coming up like Jackson Holiday can't even find a spot right now with the Orioles. I know he came up and he wasn't any good, but like he's gonna be great, right? He's gonna be great. So like, in the Cubs, it was like a hard thing for them to do. They got rid of everyone after COVID, like Rizzo gone, Bryant gone, Baez gone, Schwarber, that one hurts, gone. Like all the first three I mentioned, they did the right thing. They didn't pay them. That was the right thing to do to get rid of all three of them. But
Well,
it's
the
just,
Royals went through this too. When
yeah,
when their
yeah,
guys were good,
you're
like
right.
I remember they had 5 really good
Yeah,
players,
Eric
Mustakas and those
Hosmer.
guys, Hosmer, and it was
Yeah,
like, okay, well, the fans are going to be this or that or whatever. And listen, they have been sucking at the small market teat here. This is Peter Poormouthing for 20 years. The
mm,
Masson deal going the other way, and him never paying the bill, and like the Nationals exists now, so we have our own Cubs White Sox thing here that
yeah.
never existed back when I knew you, at the
Right,
turn of the
right.
century, literally.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the Nationals definitely are. I mean, they won a World Series in 2019. So I mean, the Nationals.
And there's another example of how quickly that goes away. And
Yeah,
Harper's in Philly, and
right.
Soto's gone,
And
and we got a bag of baseballs, and we're 500 team. And like,
Strasburg sold his soul to win a World Series. I always thought that because, like, that's the guy. Him and Mark Pryor, the two pitchers I always think of, that if they were healthy would be Hall of Famers. And Strasburg was just legit stud, right? I mean, unbelievable
Joe
what he did.
Faxi kind of dominant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Great comparison. And then he just, I mean, did he pitch 50 innings after that World Series was over? I mean, it's unbelievable what happened to him. But, the Cubs and the White Sox are just like, they're like, they're not relevant, right now because they're so far out of the Cubs are like 5.5 out of wild card spot. And Nestor, the worst part was in the offseason, the Cub fans were, puffing their chests out. We took the Brewers manager, the guy who had taken him to the playoffs like
Genius. Yeah.
5 straight years. Like we're like, yeah, suck it. We got your manager. We're going to the show this year. We're going to win a championship. And the Brewers are really good. They're better without Counsell. And the Cubs are what, 7 or 8 games under 500 with Craig Counsell. So like,
That's really benefited the Brewers moving to the National League in that way, right? With the Cubs.
yeah,
That's a real thing.
yeah, oh
In
yeah.
a way that the White Sox really wasn't a thing.
No, never. And it's a definitely a hatred thing. Like the Cub fans and Brewers fans. I mean, Counsell gets booed.
It kind of picks up Packers Bears. It kind of piggies
Yeah,
that a
a little
little bit.
bit. Yeah, nothing's Packers Bears though. I mean, that's like that's
I've been
just
to that bar, that's half
yeah,
and half. Yeah. So
yeah.
yeah.
It's next level hate Packers Bears and the Packers. It stinks that the Packers have really just owned the Bears over the last couple of years. People thought, oh, Aaron Rodgers, remember that he famously after he ran in for a touchdown, he yelled to the fans, "I own you, I own you." And everyone's like, all right, he's gone now with Jordan Love. We'll compete. No, still lost both games last year. So, I don't know. I don't even know where to even like to look. You know how you're always like, oh, there's what I see at the end of the road. That's going to help turn these things around. I don't see it with the Cubs right now. I just think they're just a middling team that doesn't know what to do. Everyone's like, this is the next couple of weeks. They're going to decide whether they sell or buy. They have to jump like 6 teams, Nestor, to get back into the spot for a wild card spot. So I mean, I don't know what they're going to do. They don't have many guys they can trade though. Maybe Cody Bellinger and the guy you're facing tonight, Jameson Taillon, who's been really good for the Cubs. But outside of that, they don't have much to trade. So I mean, they're as I told you, they're kind of in hell right now because they don't have many stars. And they overpaid for a shortstop who's just not very good right now in Dansby Swanson. And they got him, I think, for 2 or 3 more years. So good luck if you're a Cub fan right now. There's not much to look forward to.
Yeah, and Randy Merkin is our guest. He was a former executive producer at Sporting News Radio 101 Sports in Chicago, Illinois. I'm wearing my White Sox Aparicio 69 throwback here over my I'm a Blunt Person shirt for courtesy of our friends at Curio Wellness and Foreign Daughter. So the Cubs and White Sox thing and the baseball thing, when I talk about the trading deadline in a couple of weeks, I always say, who can we fleece? There's no fleecing going on, though, right? I mean, you know what I mean? You can get Crochet, great. I mean, let's start with Kerstad or Cowser and a Mayo, and those are the kind of names, because so few teams are out of it. So few teams have the artillery to deal with, especially the Orioles. The Orioles are perceived as being fat and loaded, and you can get a couple of real good players from them if you had the right artillery. And certainly an under control pitcher would be the part of this. We've been that team forever. We've been the team that had players so awful nobody wanted our. Nobody was even coming to get our players at the trading deadline most years, because we were never that team. The rebuilding part of selling that to fans in a place like Chicago, and I guess I would think in the 25 years it's been since I did 101 Sporting News Radio as Nasty Nationwide, the Bulls were winning at that point, or had won a whole bunch at that point. Jordan was doing the back and forth thing and wound up playing for the Bullets and baseball and all that had happened at that point for him. But Blackhawks won a couple times. Even the White Sox won, and even the Cubs won. So I do think there's a point. And look, man, the White Sox is a long time ago. The Cubs is around the corner. I even with the Ravens, because they've been competitive and had sort of this handing off of Flacco to Lamar. They haven't stunk except when Lamar's been hurt and didn't play in the playoffs and whatnot. But when you hit rock bottom and you can't find your way out, with the Orioles here, it was so hopeless because you knew the owner was bad. And I would say for the White Sox owner to be so bad when the Bulls were so good, and it was the same ownership group, and then the Tribune Company, a news organization, was the Tribsters, as our former colleague used to say all the time, and then the Wirtz family, Wirtz and worse, and like when you think of these generational things, there has to be some level of confidence in ownership, the people running the baseball team, the business people to figure it out, to have a little bit of patience. And I mean, the Blackhawks had a sex scandal in there. I mean, they had awful, awful stuff that happened there. Like there's been some real journalism in and around these teams and things that have gone on with these teams in recent years as well.
Yeah, the Blackhawk scandal was horrific, and I think Joe Quenneville was just and Scotty and Stan Bowman just reinstated, but like that still has a stain on that franchise because what's going on during I think the first championship, and they kind of pushed it aside because they wanted to win so badly. But I mean,
We're
Jerry,
familiar with that. We had a franchise here that pushed Ray Rice out onto the field when,
right,
yeah,
right,
totally,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Jerry Reinsdorf's an interesting one to me, Nestor, because like everyone, rips him all the time. He's a bad owner, bad owner. Like at some level, I kind of agree with that. But like, I think the biggest thing recently he did that was bad is hiring Tony La Russa when no one, the general manager didn't want him, and Tony La Russa because he wanted to. Tony La Russa was fired in the early '80s, and he felt terrible about it all that time. So he was trying to right a wrong. Right, it didn't work. Tom Ricketts, I mean, listen, he paid for Darvish, didn't work out. He's paying for Dansby Swanson a huge contract. It's not working out. So people who say that Tom Ricketts doesn't spend, Shohei Ohtani was never coming to Chicago, right? I mean, he was going like I could have told you that last year, start the year. The Dodgers, if you noticed, didn't spend anything in free agency. It was set that he was going to stay. He wanted to stay in the West Coast, and the Dodgers were going to be the perfect fit for him. So I wasn't upset that, people are like, oh, the Cubs were never serious threats. The Cubs knew they had no chance to get Shohei Ohtani. It just wasn't going to happen. But
I was at Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson speaking on stage at Massey Hall in Toronto, and the buzz that night was that Shohei Ohtani was on a plane to Toronto.
right,
Like this,
right,
right? I mean, it's about Toronto media and sports
yeah,
media.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
the baseball thing really does, it picks up communities in that
yeah,
way, and we're in the
yeah,
midst of it. And
right,
I'm trying to figure out what it means for the community here and how to maximize it, because it is fleeting.
yeah.
Even if you have
Listen,
Cubs money, it's fleeting.
you guys took our bench coach, and I think you got a great manager in Brandon Hyde. He's been great for the Orioles, and he went through some dark years there with the Orioles, and he's come out the other side, and now you guys like are loaded at every position. I'm jealous of that because that was the Cubs, 15. They weren't ready yet, but they made it to they got swept by the Mets in the National League Championship Series, and then the following year, they beat the Dodgers. They beat Clayton Kershaw in the Game 6. Kyle Hendricks comes out, and then like you're like, boy, this feels great. Nestor, I always tell my friends during the Bulls run, I would say just enjoy this because you'll never, ever, ever see this again. And
And
I'm
you
basically
haven't.
right. We came close, not to that, not nearly to that level, but when Derrick Rose was drafted number 1, and his first couple years were so electric, and he was so good, he was so explosive, and then he stays in the game too late, and the injury happens, and he was never the same player. He's gonna be the first Nestor, the first MVP that probably will not be an NBA Hall of Famer. I don't think he's going to be a Hall of Famer. He just doesn't have the credentials. But there's been every city goes through tragedies, sports tragedies like that, right? Derrick Rose is a sports tragedy in Chicago because he should have. That team, I think, would have won a championship. I think he was that talented. But um, you know, I
We'll
keep
say
going back.
that here if we don't win a Super Bowl with Lamar,
Yeah,
I mean, we will.
yeah. I mean, that's the crazy thing. What does Lamar have? Two postseason wins?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, right? I mean, and like, and it's just like it's crazy because that team is so good. Your defense is so good. You took our guy, our linebacker, and he's great
Yeah,
for he.
that's the fleece. That was a fleecing. That
Yeah,
literally, that's the kind of fleecing we need in the baseball market right there,
yeah,
Mercs. That's what we need,
yeah.
buddy.
I mean, Roquan was good here, and he was really talented. That one I don't have a huge problem with because I knew like Ryan Poles has always had like an idea what he wanted to do, right? And he just didn't feel like the Bears were ready to win, and Roquan was ready to win, right? So it's almost like he did him a favor, sent him to Baltimore. Listen, like he set this team up to win for the next couple of years. Like as well as I do, you're a huge NFL fan and you've covered the league a long time. Keenan Allen can either be great or he can be injured, right? So we might, which I don't know which Keenan Allen we're gonna get, but like everyone thinks, Nestor, I don't know what you think. The Bears are gonna have one of the best offenses in the NFL this year. And again, I'm holding back. They got Swift from the Eagles. They've got 3 good wide receivers. They got 2 good tight ends. The offensive line is a little better, but like I'm telling you, Nestor, everything is on the Bears. The Bears have
It
the
feels like they never get the coach right. They never get the
yeah,
quarterback right. And
yeah,
honestly, the McCaskey family, they've never gotten ownership right there.
right,
It's never felt
true,
right. They've never had the stadium right. I mean, we've already
true,
talked about that. So
right,
like that was always the part where like it's like Cleveland. The fans want it, and Detroit. The fans want it.
yep,
Ownership's inept at some level in its ability to deliver it. And I don't mean hearing the fans or being billionaires or anything like that. Just can't get the right people. And that's why when you get a Mike Elias and there's an ownership change here, you better figure out that Mike Elias is here in this because he can entertain other offers at some point. He can be a free agent too and take his program elsewhere in the way that Theo took his program
yep,
and won a championship, and Joe Madden took his program and won a championship. The program's still behind in Tampa. 15 years later, they're still doing it Joe Madden's way, kind of, sort of, right? So, and then he goes to Anaheim, and they, can't win with the 2 best players on earth.
right. Isn't that
Because it's a
amazing?
it's a team game, right?
Isn't it
So,
amazing that
uh,
they never won with they never even got to the playoffs with Trout's played 3 playoff games in his whole career. It's unbelievable.
Reminds
That's
me of Ernie Banks as we got Cubs
yeah,
talk here this week,
yeah,
right? Ron
yeah,
Santo.
yeah,
Randy Merkin was the producer at Sporting News Radio and 101 Sports 25 years ago. If you saw my documentary, if you want to go check it out, check it out. But there was a big period of my life where I was recruited and did national radio on 425 syndicated places. Still places I go where people remember it, places like Tucson and places like Portland, Maine, and places like Rochester, Minnesota, and also Fresno, where we had a good time and we had great people. Chet Kopic was one of my favorite people. He couldn't be here this week, so I can't have Chet. I have you, Merks. How about that? So I need you to hold your book up, tell
yeah.
everybody about your book, and because you haven't even. dude, you've forgotten more about, like, I start talking sports and you like go through quarterbacks and this and that and draft picks and history and like, dude, you're a great, great, great radio guest and you're a great Chicago historian for all things sports. You do cookies crumbling, but you also wrote a book about chasing down celebrities and athletes and working in the industry
Right.
that really is the backbone of what our industry was and what Lonnie Williams did. And
Yeah.
anybody that ever put John Wooden on the radio with me or Charles Barkley, there was a guy like you behind it making it
Yep.
happen.
Well, Nestor, during COVID, I mean, I love what I did. I got my start. My first radio job was in Platteville, Wisconsin. Then I got hired by Rich Bond back in 1994 to come to 101 Sports in Northbrook. And I learned so many great things from the best. Like Mark Jenskow taught me so much about booking guests. Like I used to watch him and just be amazed. And you know what he told me one thing, Nestor, which I still to this day follow. And you do it. I know I see it because of all the great people you have on. He said to me, Randy, I could have every phone number I want, but it's all about the relationships, right? It's all about the relationships you build with these people, the trust you build with these people. And I've always taken that with me. And it's one thing I've always done. You can't always call on someone just when you need them, right? You call on them when something big happens for them. Perfect example to me is I've built a really good relationship with Charles Barkley, and it's not just hey, I need you to come on. I probably bug him too many times to come on, but like when he won the Emmy, right? I texted him, congratulations. He responded, thanks, bro. That type of stuff. Oh, I can say that a bunch of people. You see, like Joe Buck. I know you have a good relation. You have a relationship with Joe Buck. You text him.
I saw him in Florida in March.
Yeah.
We chatted. He had a smile on his face. It was
So
nice seeing Joe.
that's what this book is all about. It tells all the stories, guest booking stories. Like one of my favorite stories is George Steinbrenner, who probably the younger audience doesn't know. But like the first time I booked him, I called him, woke him up in a hotel. He was really upset with me, but he said basically like you have the gumption to call me at 11 o'clock at night to get me on the next day. He goes, call me in the office tomorrow and I'll do it. And he did it. So the book is Behind the Glass: Stories of a Sports Radio Producer, and the website is behindtheglassthebook.com. You can still order it. The second one is hopefully going to be out in the winter, Nestor, almost done. Just a couple more stories to write for that one. But I love it. The response I got was great. Just had a ton of fun doing it. And, Nestor, we're lifers in the radio industry, man. I still love the chase of the big guest, the big story. That's what this medium has always afforded us to do is to go after the big story and to get the big guest on, to get the big reaction, ask the right question, right? That's the one thing Matt, mentioned the Hagian before. Like, dude, that's the one thing Matt and I have always like we're always looking at. Like, okay, you have the guest on, but it's not just putting the guest on, right? It's asking the right question, listening when you're doing the interview to make sure that if hey, that guy just what did he just say? Oh, I had another question, but I got to follow up on that because that's crazy what he just said there. And in this industry, you got to have thick skin, right? Because you're going to get yelled at. Someone's going to come after you, and as long as you're doing your job the right way, ethically, I got no problem when people yell at me. It's if I'm like doing things shady, then I'm like, man, that's bad. But like if I'm working hard doing things the right way and I overstep my bounds sometimes, hey, I called someone in the hotel I shouldn't have called, or I bugged someone I shouldn't have bugged, I'll take it. But treat me the right way because I've always treated people the right way. I've always respected people. They said no, whatever, they don't want to come on, it's fine. But like that to me is important as well. But like I learned from the best. Like so many great people, and I was a sponge when I was young, right? In this industry. I always tell young producers that when they ask for advice, I'm like, be a sponge, like learn and take in stuff. I always had a notepad writing stuff down and like make a good interview great, make a great interview memorable, right? And that's what I always try to do. Like putting my, everyone, Nestor, when the 1980 Olympics anniversary comes up every year, Michael Rosioni's phone blows up. And one year I was working with Waddle and Sylvia. I said, let's make this next level. So Al Michaels was doing the Olympics. I forgot where he was. It was somewhere overseas. I found the hotel he was staying at. Mike Ruzione's about to come on. I call Al Michaels, get him to come on with Mike Ruzioni. Just let those two guys talk for 10 minutes about memories of that gold medal and, beating the Russians. So, I love it. I could talk about the industry forever, but this book allowed me to kind of share basically what being a sports radio producer is really all about. Everyone just thinks it's, oh, you called so-and-so, got him on. Cool. No, it's, the chase is half the fight, right? And you know it as well as I do.
Well, I
The
was a
chase.
reporter.
Right.
So when I got out to you,
Mhm.
I was just running the station from the beginning and trying to train people that had no um sense for it. You know what I mean? I don't mean common sense. Sometimes that
Right.
was the case. I mean no soul for it, no instinct for it.
Mhm.
And I could never teach the instinct to do this. Still can't. Which is why I'm so proud of Luke Jones as as my reporter, and so appalled that the Orioles don't allow in the Venezuelan reporter or me or sort of and what the Ravens have done. It's just become greasy, dude. Like you said, shady. Like, who is media, who isn't, who has a podcast. I mean, really, it's become a reality show for their team websites with heavily edited, homogenized, rehearsed in most cases content. Um, and I saw last week Biden, who I'm voting for, by the way, no matter, just I don't want to get that straight, but I can criticize him. That a radio show said that they handed him the questions, and I'm thinking to myself, like, I've been doing this 33 years, and as I get older, more people try to hand me the questions. And nothing pisses me off more from my reporter's background, from the side. I took PR classes. I like PR. I have relationships, PR. But like in 33 years, I've never had a gotcha question because I value relationships, to your point. I would never bring anybody on the air and ask them some hanging question in that way. But as I said to the governor the last time I had him on, was I'm not here to kiss your ass. Like, you're running for an elected office. Like, do your PR on your PR channel. When you're here, I get to ask the questions. You can duck them, answer them, hang up on me, walk away, bitch at me afterward, tell me you're never coming back on again, which some people have for legitimate questions. But like, I can't be compromised. And in recent times, I mean, my most recent occasions, the new ownership who basically have tried to shake me down and get a press credential back. Like, and I'm not really down with that. Like, we had a more relationship based environment 25 years ago, calling Charles Barkley or calling Al Michaels or calling George Steinbrenner than we would ever have. And Steve Bisciotti's in my phone, right? And Rubenstein's handler's in my phone. They're not coming on. And they're not coming on because they're not going to hand me the questions, right? And the accountability in a town like Baltimore's gone to manure, Mercs. Where like there is no, they just got $600 million each to fix their stadiums, to bleed rich people for richer beers and charge a higher cover charge basically to come to the club, the country club. That's what they're building. That's what they're doing. And meanwhile, the Orioles are as good as they get, and they have the upper decks empty. They're doing $65. Give the Orioles a lot of credit. They just hired a new chief business officer, a lady named Carrie Griggs, who worked in the soccer industry, worked for the Mariners. She's going to come here. They're going to get an all-star game here. So there's a lot of business here that needs to be covered. But I find that journalism, even sports radio, national sports radio, where I mean, when I go through the litany of the guests we have, if you and I had to put it together again today, unless it said ESPN or league sponsored, you would never get anybody to pick up the phone these days. We couldn't do what we did 25 years ago out in Northbrook, Illinois, because the agents, the money, the pretending that Aaron Rodgers is your bro and you're paying him $1 million a week to come on the show, and he's saying outlandish, unadulterated garbage, anti-scientific, crazy batshittery that, and you got to wear a beater t-shirt and stand around and it's WWE. Like, dude, and the gambling side, let me put that on. First thing that would have gotten me thrown out of the industry would have been me touting, hawking, gambling, asking Ray Lewis how he felt this week to see how 3 points did for us, and then give him my 1-900 number tips on the air on the side at Sporting News Radio. That never would have been tolerated. It's built into the industry now. Like, so the industry's changed dramatically, dude. And what we do and what we're limited in getting George Steinbrenner on the air and him saying, I'll answer any question you have because I'm in front of my brand, the way Jerry Jones to some degree, sort of old school, and we won't see that again. Mr. Rubenstein will give out hats. He'll splash fans. He'll do these orchestrated television commercials and all that. But I don't expect him to answer real questions from real reporters because there aren't many of them left, dude.
I hear you. I hear you. I can tell you in Chicago, though, there's a lot of great reporters
Good.
that
You
cover
need
these
them.
teams. Yeah, like the Bears beat is phenomenal. The Cubs beat is phenomenal. My brother's on the Sox beat. I can tell you that's a great beat. I don't know the Hawks beat quite as well, but I know they've got guys like Mark Lazarus who are great as well. So, there still is like Chicago reporters hold them to the fire. I mean they do a great job covering the teams, but
There is
um,
no breaking news here on the Orioles or Ravens side that doesn't come from Adam Schefter with a signing or the team website rolling out whatever the next thing they're going to upcharge and get you to sign up for something on.
yeah, yeah, I hear you. Yeah, you're probably right. Like, listen,
Players only sit on the lounge now.
mm, listen, things evolve, unfortunately, and you just kind of have to evolve with it. Like like the days of Sporting News Radio were crazy. Like they were just like the wild, wild west for us, right? It was just like Chris Brennan was the owner, and just kind of let everyone do their thing. Would come down every once in a while and kind of, talk shop with you, but like he trusted everyone that he had good people running the place, and we did have good
And
people
his
running.
father was around a lot, legendary
Terry,
Notre
I
Dame
mean, yeah,
coach.
Terry Brennan, the coach. May he rest in peace. Was around for a lot. Yeah, could talk shop with him as well.
You
But
mentioned Jens Cal. I got to throw this in case
yeah,
he watches this because he linked me in recently.
uh-huh,
The Jens Cal line that I always remember that I recite is "Smoke 'em while you got 'em,"
uh-huh.
which was a reference to say, "Hey, it's here and now. Do it now." And I think of that in reference to his courage with his child and with my wife's illness. I think about it in a deeper sense of, hey, Mick Jagger's in town tonight. Go see him because you never know. Or Sammy
Yeah,
Hagar's on tour. Go
yeah.
see him. Or times are good for the baseball team right now, the Cubs fans. So go see, you know what I mean?
Right,
Like,
right.
smoke them all you got them
Yeah,
to me. And I'll let Jenscow, if he ever wants to come on and talk shop and talk about it, all the things we talked about. But, that's a life credo
yeah.
to enjoy every sandwich, as Warren Zevon once said. Merks.
Uh-huh. Yep, yep. And Warren Zevon was one of Letterman's favorite people. Yeah, I think to have on. He loved them. But Jenskow, I was producing his show one time. It's a solo show and during the holidays, and I saw him come. This is back when you booked guests by calling hotels. 5 straight breaks, he came in and booked like I think it was like Cordell Stewart, Brett Favre, Lou Holtz, Barry Alvarez, and I can't remember the other one. I was just
It
looking
was
at
some
him
like all-star lineup, right?
I mean,
Yeah,
every
yeah.
break, and he was just calling them up and just like, they're all listed, just calling them up. And I finally, I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, how about, he was always say, how about that, Randy? And I was like, I mean, it's amazing. And he told me that like he had a relationship with Lou Holtz, had a relationship with Favre, didn't have a relationship with Cordell Stewart, but got him to come on. I mean, it just was like, it was just an amazing thing to see. And I always said to myself, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do like, I wanted to be the best at what I did, right? I knew I was never going to be a great athlete. So I'm like, I'm
You're
going
a
to be,
decent golfer, from what I understand.
I am a 2 holes in 1 in 3 days, like in 2004, celebrating that earlier this year. But like, I was like, I'm going to be the best guest booker that, people might be as good as me. And there are like Todd Fritz is phenomenal, Dan Patrick show, but like, I'm going to be really good at my job. And like, people are going to beat me some days, but most time I'm going to win. So that's what I've tried to do. And I've tried to anyone that'll listen. I've spoken to classes. I've loved, to share my wisdom, Nestor, because I think that's important. Keep this industry going. There is some great young producers out there that I see. So hopefully they keep doing what they're doing because listen, there's still a lot of great content out there for sure, and I'm still in that belief, and that's what I hold to.
Well, that's why I have guys like you on. Randy Merkin's here. He has written a book. Hold your book up, man. Tell everybody about the book and tell everybody where to get the book.
All right, so it's behind the glass, thebook.com is the website. Some great James Brown, JB wrote the foreword for it. I appreciate JB doing that. Talking about salt of the earth guys, great guy. Just tons of stories. I think there's 90 stories in this book. Some great pictures, some great stories of people I've worked with, I've met. Snoop Dogg. There's a story about Snoop Dogg in here, and a bunch of Barkley stories, bunch of stories with George Steinbrenner, Ryan Sandberg, my favorite baseball player of all time. So yeah, just some crazy stories that I went with, and yeah, you'll enjoy it. It's an easy read, Nestor. You could do it in one night. I'm telling you, I've had people tell me they read the whole book in one night and loved it. So it's really cool when you're just walking on the street. You've written a couple books, you know it. When you're walking on the street and someone looks at you and says, "Hey, Merk, I love that book," and you're like, "Wow, pretty cool that people actually, associate me with something like that." So I was really proud to do it, and hopefully I can get the second one done soon.
Well, you could produce my radio show anytime, Randy Merkin, that you like.
Absolutely,
Randy
buddy.
Merkin of Chicago, Illinois. I got my White Sox jersey on, even though the Cubs are in. The Yankees will be in. It's All-Star Game week. They should go back to wearing the regular colors for the All-Star Game instead of these
Yes,
pajamas that they wear.
yes,
Get
yes.
off my lawn, is Papa Joe. Bite me. Hey, they got to bite me in this segment,
There you
huh?
go. There you go.
Hey, now we're living right. I am Nestor. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. Booking great guests around here talking baseball and summertime and sports. We're Baltimore positive. Stay with us.